Hi, I'm Marcel and I like to build vans and show other DIY enthusiasts like you how you can build a van with confidence. In this video, I'm going to be upgrading my water system in the van by adding a couple of components that I've been wanting to do for quite some time. This video is brought to you by my brand new online course, Vanbuild Academy. More on that later. Firstly, I'm going to be adding an accumulator. So this is a little pressurized device that keeps the pressure in the line to prevent the pump from actually cycling. So this is a bladder type accumulator that sits directly downstream from the pump. When the pump is off, the bladder is compressed inside the cylinder. However, when the tap is opened and the pump turns on, the bladder acts as a cushion absorbing pump and pressure fluctuations. When the tap is turned off, the pump builds up pressure in the accumulator for the next time the tap is opened again for a smooth, consistent flow. So in this van, we have what's called a diaphragm pump, and these pumps work with a little micro switch. So when the pressure in the line builds up, the micro switch automatically turns the pump to turn off. Now without one of these, the pressure switch fluctuates quite a lot and you can actually burn out the switch. So over the 4 years that we've had this van, I've actually had to replace the switch once, which isn't the biggest deal, but I thought it was time to get one of these and make our system run a lot smoother. So I'll run you through how we install one of these in the line. So the second thing I'm going to install is a separate water filler tap. So I've purchased one of these twin cartridge water filters and I'm actually going to install a separate water filler tap. So currently we filter our water before it gets into the tank with an inline filter that's connected to our water hose. But in the past, what's happened is we haven't been able to find a pressurized water hose to actually fill our tanks with. So we've had to use like rainwater or a low pressure tap. So we couldn't actually filter it with the inline filter. So having a water filter built into our water system means we'll be able to filter all our water after it leaves the tank. So I'll get into more details about how these work later, but to start I have to get access to the back where the plumbing system is, and the easiest way to do that is take out my fridge and all my drawers, and then I've got full access to where the pump is. Okay, so the reason why an accumulator in a system like this will benefit you, because when there is low flow in the tap, the pressure switch kind of fluctuates. So you'll be able to see, if I get this, now you probably can't hear that, but I definitely can, and I can hear the pump going That means it's turning on and off constantly to maintain a low flow. When I turn the pump on full, it's just continuously running the pump. So what happens when the pump is continuously cycling on and off at these low pressures is that little pressure switch is clicking on and off constantly, and that can actually burn out. Now it's only like a $10 part to replace, but you want to have your system set up correctly so that won't happen. Now your system will work without an accumulator like ours has for over 4 years, but it will perform a little bit better with one. They are pretty cheap, they're only $40, so I thought I may as well install one and see how it goes. Okay, so I'm now in the cavity where my fridge was. This is where my water pump sits. So I'm gonna have to install the accumulator on the outside of the water pump. So the water comes up through my tank, into my pump, it'll go into the accumulator, and then it'll tee off into my water filter and then the rest of the water system. So I'm gonna have to rearrange this whole area a little bit to get this to fit. Maybe change a couple of the fittings. Okay, so I've pulled everything out now and I've connected my pump to my accumulator with a union fitting. So that's just like a brass fitting that I'm gonna put Teflon tape on to seal the threads. The water from my pump gets pulled up into this strainer, goes into the pump, goes into the accumulator, and then into my water system. So this thing is actually a little pressurized vessel. So it's got a little black valve up here that you can add air. So the pressure in here has to be below the cutoff pressure of my pressure switch, which is situated down here. So to install my water filter, I've got the water filter T-valve, which I'm going to screw directly off the accumulator, and then that goes off into my water filter, and then the rest of it just goes straight off into the rest of my water system that's already installed in the van. Okay, so I'll show you the basics of the filter system now. This is how the water filter works. It goes from the pump into the accumulator and then to a T-valve. So this valve either goes into the rest of my water system or into the water filters. So the first water filter is a sediment filter. So this filter is what filters out your sand, dirt, mud, rust, and all the big particles. The next filter is in this one, and this is the carbon filter. So this filter filters out pesticides, chemicals, chlorines, and even heavy metals, which is really important. It then leaves the filters and then goes into the separate water filter tap. So when this tap is opened, the water flows all the way through the filters and out the tap. Now these things are super easy to install. So all the connections in the water system use this quick connection system. This is the hose that goes into the quick connection system like this. And that is a perfect seal. Now if you want to reuse the connection, you press down and pull it out. And then you can reuse it. So a tip when using this plumber's tape or Teflon tape is you want to wrap it round in the same direction that when the thread goes on, it'll continue that wrap. Otherwise, if you do it in the opposite direction, when you turn the thread on, the tape seems to unravel itself. So in this scenario, I'm going to wrap it round like this. So now that was turned on this side, I'm also going to spin my union nut in the same direction, so it's not going to undo the Teflon tape. So I'm needing to reroute a bit of the plumbing because I'm adding that extra length from the accumulator. And because I've used the SharkBite quick to connect system, it's easy to disassemble and then reassemble with the same fittings because that is how it's fit together. There is a special tool to do this, but I've lost it. So you can use a pair of pliers, push this down, and then you can take the whole fitting off and then you can reuse it. You just have to cut off the end here because it does actually cut a little groove into the PEX pipe and it won't seal if you put it in the exact same spot. So I need to cut a little bit off this and a little bit off this side and then a little bit more from under there and then join it all back together again. Just like that. It's that easy. And if I would have built this van with another PEX system where I had to crimp it or use another joining method and I wanted to update my water system, it definitely wouldn't have been this easy and I would have had to cut a lot of hoses and rejoin with a lot of new connections. Okay, so I've got the pump and accumulator installed inline. I had to cut a couple of the water pipes to rearrange everything, but it all fits in there nice and snugly. So now I actually have to set up the pressure for the accumulator by pumping air into the Schrader valve, which is just the standard bike valve. And the way I do that is I look at the cutoff pressure for this pump. So this pump cuts off at around about 55 psi. That means I need to set the pressure in the accumulator tank for around 5 psi lower than that. So I'm going to pump this up to 50 psi, which will set up the pump and accumulator correctly together. So let's do that now. Okay, if you are doing this, you have to make sure that you first turn the pump off at the switch and also open your tap to release the pressure in the tank. So I'm going to pump this in. Turn this to 50 psi. Okay, so the accumulator is now set up to 50 psi. Okay, so let's now turn the tap on and see how it all works. Are you dreaming of van life but overwhelmed by the conversion process? Don't worry, you're not alone. Building a van like this can be exciting, but it also comes with a lot of planning and decisions. So that's where I come in. I've converted multiple vans myself and learned from my mistakes. Mistakes I'll show you how to avoid. My online van build course is designed for DIY enthusiasts of all experience levels, helping you save time, money, and stress throughout your project. So here's what you'll get. Everything in one place. The course provides all the information you need from choosing your perfect van, planning your water, gas, and electrical systems to completion. So with detailed video tutorials, I will guide you through every step of the conversion process so you can build your van right the first time, as well as having tons of included schematics, diagrams, calculators, and 3D models. I'll help you save valuable time by having a clear plan before you even start building. Click the link in the description to find out more and how to enroll in the course. Okay. With the water pump now turned on, let's see the difference with the accumulator. So if I turn the tap on to very low flow, it should in theory not cycle the pump and have a much more steady flow. So let's have a look. So you can see it's coming out much more steady and I can hear the pump only cycle every now and then as it's recharging the accumulator, as the accumulator is holding the pressure in the line and creating a much more steady flow. Now if I put it all the way up, the pump runs as it was before, so the accumulator is much more noticeable at these low flows as you'll get a much steadier stream of water. Okay, so the way I'm going to mount this water filter housing is underneath the sink behind the fridge, and I'm going to mount it onto the sheet metal of the van. If I put a standard metal screw into this and into the sheet metal, over time, because this is pretty heavy, especially when there's water in there and when the van's moving around, the metal screw will probably flog the hole out over time and become loose. So instead, what I'm going to use is what's called a riv nut. So a riv nut is a little insert that you drill a hole in, put the insert in, and then using a riv nut gun, kind of similar to a pop rivet gun, this screws on top like this, you put it in the hole, and then the insert squeezes into position, essentially making a threaded insert that's in place in the sheet metal. This way I can use an M6 bolt, which I can really tighten up and make this thing rock solid so it's not going to be moving over time. So I've actually marked out my holes. I'm going to drill it out with a 10mm drill bit, and then I'm going to install the riv nuts. So now I've got two threaded inserts that are essentially like the factory threaded insert here, and I'm going to be able to bolt my water filter housing into these inserts for a much stronger hold. Okay, that is pretty solid, but I still probably will put a cable tie around the bottom here and attach it to something so it doesn't kind of bounce around and do this. That is only because the sheet metal is bending up the top. The hold is rock solid. Okay, now I've got to install the water filter tap, and I'm going to install it next to my main tap right here. The actual water filter I bought came with a tap as a bundle. It was like $89. It was pretty cheap, but I didn't like the look of the tap, so I went and bought another one to match this one. So all I have to do is drill a 12mm hole down here. I'm going to screw it up from underneath so it sandwiches against the bench top, and then I'm just going to quick connect it all together with the supplied hose. So it should be pretty easy. Let's go. Okay, so the T from my water system comes up here, goes into the inlet of the filters, filter 1, filter 2, outlet, and then up into the end of the water filter tap, right up the end here. So now if I open this valve here, it'll let the water into the filters, the pump will turn back on, and it'll start filling these up with water. Okay, so now that all the plumbing is hooked up for the water filter, I've checked all leaks and made sure all the connections weren't dripping or anything like this. But first I need to run the water filter for about 5 minutes to clean out all the filters. It's pretty standard practice when you put new filters, you got to run them through for about 5 minutes. Okay, so that has been running now for at least 10 minutes. So these filters should be well and truly ready to go. So I want to do a before and after test for both clarity and taste. So this is pre-filtered water, which is still just coming out of my normal tap. And this one is going to be the filtered water. Just going off clarity. This is before and this is after to my right. It definitely looks a little bit clearer. It is a little bit hard to tell, but let's go for the taste test. Okay, so this is before. Okay, I can tell that's been sitting in the tank for quite some time. I haven't filled my water tanks up for a couple of weeks, and I have a little bit of a plasticky water tank taste. No, it's not very nice. It tastes like kind of town water that you get out of a tap at a park. Not so great. Now let's taste the filtered water. Wow, that just totally removes all those bad tastes. It tastes cleaner. It tastes like more like rainwater than tap water. No, but yeah, it's definitely tastes so much better with the filter. If anything, that's a positive. Okay, now all I have to do is just put in my fridge and my drawers back again, and that is a complete job. So if you got anything out of this video, remember, if you want to say thanks for free, all you have to do is just hit that like button below. That'll help the channel out. Subscribe if you want to see more van content like this. And if you want to learn more about my Vanbuild online course, go to the website saltyvanventures.com for more information and how to enroll. Until next time, I'll see you later.